One. Welcome to Learn Something New Today. This is a podcast where we intersect education and entertainment and pretty much whatever I want to talk about. We have a special guest in the studio here, not the studio, over Zoom. And if you hear a little bit of an echo, just FYI, I'm actually at the library right now. My house is full and I wasn't able to shoot in my office, but uh, he is a actor, a writer, a content creator, a full-time dad, Puerto Rican from New York. We have Zeus Soisa in the building. Did I pronounce your last name right?
Socias, that's fine. That
Socia,
that works for
Socia. Oh
me.
my gosh. I was
All
trying
good,
so
man. All
hard.
good. I'll take either one, man.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. It's Monday, getting the week started. So man, I'm ready to go, man.
For real, I hear you, man. And it doesn't feel like Monday. It feels like a Friday to me because it just I don't know, the days are just running into each other. But man, you've been busy. Every time I look at your Instagram stories, every time I look at your content, you are like behind the camera, looking at a script. Bro, what have you been up to? Talk to us.
Absolutely, man. So as you said earlier, I'm a full-time dad, so that takes up the majority of my time, of course. But yeah, as far as behind the camera, man, I'm actually working on a film right now. This film Garcia's, which is actually taking place in Spanish Harlem.
Okay.
And what's cool about it is we're, shooting in Spanish Harlem as well. This is an independent film, so we're working with the elements and the people, right? Not shutting any streets down or anything like that to film. So we're really getting that raw feeling of being in Spanish Harlem, of course.
Right.
And what's
You don't
even
run into
cooler
any
about
wild
it.
shit like where people, yo, get the fuck out the way. No,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
really?
yeah. We had a situation yesterday when we were filming, and we have to kind of have people manning both sides to tell people, hey, can you just walk around the other way? And one lady got really mad and was like, I don't care if you're filming.
I was gonna I was gonna say you don't tell New Yorkers what to do. You're filming over here? Well, I'm
Yeah.
working over here, so what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. Literally. Yeah, and she was snapping, man. But we got past it. I mean, we're used to it. And, again, like you're working with the elements, so the sounds that come across, you hear a train, you need to stop. You hear a helicopter, you need to stop. Plane, all that stuff, that environmental noise, you just need to kind of work with,
Oh,
and work through it. Yeah.
wow. So this is you said this is your first official movie, but
Yep.
you've been pretty active in Spanish Latin TV shows.
Yes. Yes.
Because I mean, I do a little research on the people that I'm going to be interviewing, and
Yeah.
everything that came up, it looked like The Bachelor or like, pick, and it's like all these fine women, and then you, and it's like a lot of mi amor, mi mujer. There's a lot of
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that. Give us the sauce on that.
Yeah, that was fun, man. I was on this Spanish dating show on Univision or Unimas. Um, it was a dating show. It films in Miami. It's funny because when I started my to go back into acting, right? I'll get into how I got back into that. But as I was getting back into it, I, applied for one of these casting websites. And believe it or not, this dating show, they were the first ones to contact me and say, "Hey, you'd be great for this show." I'm like, "I've never heard of this thing," you know. And they're like, "Listen, we're gonna fly you down to Miami. We're gonna pay for your stay, pay for your ticket, pay for your food." And listen, my full-time job, where I get my bread and butter, I work, in fraud, in banking fraud. So first thing
You
is
said all the
like
red
scam,
flags.
scam, 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 you know.
We're flying you down to Miami. You're gonna meet some beautiful women.
If it's
What-
my whole thing, of course, is if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And
Wake
that
up
was my
without a
whole thing. I'm
kidney.
like, yeah, literally, I was gonna wake up in some abandoned warehouse in a tub of ice. Uh,
So like what was that like? I mean, going down, I love Miami, but I'm a
Yeah.
history guy, so like I don't go down there like whatever. But um, like what was that like? Meeting with the people at Unimax and like doing the show. Like, what was your experience like?
Yeah, it was really interesting. It was actually my first time in Miami. And although I've met Cubans in the past, this is my first time actually speaking with Cubans in Spanish, which blew me away, as Caribbean like Latinos, right?
Mhm.
We we all I always figured we all had the same kind of accent, the same kind of flow as far as like speaking Spanish. I thought it wasn't going to be much different. And then my first interaction with a Cuban speaking in Spanish, they just a million miles a minute. And I was like, wow, okay. I have
Right.
some adjusting to do. It really humbled me in my Spanish for sure. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
In my opinion, they sound a lot like Puerto Ricans, but they speak so fast. I just be
Yes.
like, yo, who like you sound like my people, but I don't think you're my people.
Exactly. That it
Right.
sounds very, very similar. Um, but with that being said as well, there's a lot of other Latino groups as well.
Mhm.
And of course on the show, it's a melting pot, right? You have Latinos from every country. And that also humbled my Spanish as well, for sure. I mean, just being on a, professional show, I'm used to speaking Spanish at a personal capacity, with cousins and such, which I'm really comfortable with.
Right.
I'm comfortable with speaking the slang, like dímelo primo que la que hay, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Right. Right.
talking like that. But when you're on a show, you can't be like, mira, esto
Yeah.
está cabrón.
No,
Mira,
oh God, no.
puñeta. You know what I mean? So it's like it's a whole different thing. It's like you're speaking at more of like Spanish at like a professional capacity.
Right.
And it's a different ball game, you
Mhm.
know, when you're speaking with the host and they're asking you different questions, and not to mention the acoustics on the
Mhm.
set are, you can't always hear everything,
Correct.
and you're like, okay,
Right.
you know, um, and I consider myself, fluent in Spanish, of course, but that show really humbled me as far as my Spanish.
Wow.
That was for sure. So that was that experience. So I was already nervous on being on TV, and then
Right.
to just add another layer is like, am I going to say the right thing?
Right.
There was one question because as part of the interaction, when you're meeting someone new on the show, they
Mhm.
ask you a question, and I think one of the questions was, "Have you ever, cheated on your partner?" And I said no, right? And then the host kept asking me follow-up questions. But they basically got me to say that yes, I cheated. I'm like,
If they
wait, what?
wanted you. You're Puerto Rican,
Yeah,
of
it's like
course you did. What are you talking about? It's in your DNA.
exactly, exactly. So it was interesting, man. It was an interesting experience. They actually called me back fairly recently to go back. I'm thinking about it. We'll
There you
see.
go.
We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see what
So
the
so let
future
me
holds.
ask you this, because it seems like you mentioned that you have a nine to five
Hmm.
job and you deal with fraud.
Yep.
Where did the acting come into this? Like, at what point were you like, listen, this is what I'm going to pursue acting? You do modeling too. So, at what point were you like, this is what I'm going to do?
Yeah. So I actually grew up with my mother, right?
Mhm.
She actually went to school for acting when I was a kid. It was a passion of hers. So I actually used to go to school with her
Mhm.
when she was going to University of the Arts in Philadelphia. And I was immersed in the world.
Right.
And my mother, she mainly did theatrical acting. So she was mainly in plays and such, but I was always in that world, in the rehearsals, backstage, all that stuff, right? So I've always had an interest in it, right? But I've always more so had an interest in film as opposed to plays. I was in quite a few plays as a child, not only in school, but also, a couple of productions that my mom was in where they needed a kid. And, I kind of played that kid, right? Um, so that was a lot of fun. But, more recently, it's been a dream of mine, but I'm a full-time dad, right?
Right.
It's hard to follow that type of dream when you have two, little girls to take care of.
Of course.
Now my girls are older. They're teenagers. So it's allowed me to start to kind of branch out more, um, and start to use this kind of newfound freedom to um, to kind of pursue the things that I've wanted to pursue all these years, So it was my New Year's resolution in the beginning of 2023. I said, I'm going to get back on this.
Good.
Apply to the casting websites. And of course, that's when the dating show reached out to me.
There you
And
go.
I was doing that for a while. And then after that, I'm like, No, I need to get back to what I originally intended, which is,
Act,
acting on film.
of course.
And I auditioned for this film, Garcia's, that we're shooting for now. And funny thing was, since this was my first film, I just wanted to be a part of it, right? I auditioned for a very small part, just like a one-liner, two-liner. And the director and writer, Carlos, the actor, big shout out to Carlos. He saw my audition. He said, "You did well, but I want you to try out for this other part." And the first thought was like, "Oh man, I bombed it." I'm like, "Oh," you know. But what I didn't know was the other part he wanted me to read for is actually the co-star in the movie.
Wow. What a
And
surprise.
yeah, it was a surprise. And, I read for it and he's like, "All right, I'll call you." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not going to get a call back." Um, and he called me the next day. He said, the part that you tried out for, I'm giving that to someone else because I'd like to give you the other part that you tried out for. He said, "This part, you're going to be the co-star. You're going to play my brother in the film. And you're actually going to be in the movie probably more than I am." Um, I was blown
Damn.
away. I was blown away, man. I'm
Right.
like, "What? This is crazy. This is crazy." But he saw something in me that I didn't necessarily see in myself. And it just, it goes to show what you're seeing from the outside. What we tend to be our own biggest critics, of course, so we don't really get to see that outside, perspective. But he really, he believed in me. He's like, "Are you sure this is your first time acting on
Really?
film?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, it's my first time."
Right.
So
That's
yeah,
what's
I'm
fun.
really excited. We've been filming for quite a while now. It takes place in the 80s too, which is cool.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, been having a lot of fun and I'm
It
really
sounds like
excited.
fun, man. So
Yeah.
let me, a big part of like when I talk with guests is we like to talk about mental health. Like you mentioned, you're a full-time dad. You have a full-time job. You have real bills. I'm a full-time dad. This is my full-time job, but it's different. But for you, how do you keep your head on straight? You're filming. You're working, you have two kids at home. Even though they're getting older, they're still kids. You still have responsibilities towards them.
Yeah.
You have bills to pay. You live in a big city that's close to a bigger city. So, things aren't getting any cheaper. What do you do to keep your head on straight for mental health?
That is such a good question. It's all about balance, right?
Mhm.
Balance is such a main key. A lot of us, preach, balance in our life, and all in all, and I've been guilty of this, right? And I've had to take a step back and look at what I'm doing in life. You really need to stick to that that mantra. Like, for example, I say, because I work as a coach at my job, right? I'm a manager of people. I'm a people manager. So, even though I sign off, right? Because I'm an exempt employee, so I don't have set hours necessarily, but sometimes I'll sign off, but then people contact me for this, that, and the other, my associates, and I feel like, oh, I need to answer them right away. I need to get to this right away. But we really need to give ourselves and know that we deserve our own time. Not only family time, right? Because you need to set aside time for your family, especially if you're a parent, right? But you also need to set aside time for yourself, whatever that may consist of. And when I say time for yourself, I don't mean being on your phone, right? I don't mean watching TV, right? I mean truly being in your own element, whatever that may be. Me personally, I like to go on hikes, right? By myself, I'm alone in the middle of the wilderness, um, that's my way, right?
I
But this
originally,
could,
I used to see your Instagram stories, and I thought you had lived like somewhere in Maine because you were like always in the woods, and I was like, yo, what the fuck is is he homeless? Like, what's this deal? He's always in the woods.
got the big
Right.
backpack.
He's got this bag on. He has a thing of water. I'm like, what is going? Is a midlife crisis going on? What is he running away from? Well, I say that
You
because
know,
I live near the Appalachian Trail. So
yeah.
I always see people, they have these big bags on, they have this ton thing of water, and it's like people that you look at them and they're trying to get away from something. And I'm like, I saw
Yeah.
you and oh wait, I hope he's okay.
I
Um
hope he's okay. Are you all right out there? Like,
yeah.
I think we need to do a wellness check on Zeus out there in the middle of the woods somewhere, Has anyone
um
heard from him?
Right, right. Man, that's wonderful, man, that you're able through so much responsibility to pursue your dreams, to take a step back, to clear your head, and basically see life for what it is and work within the constraints that you have. As somebody who you're an actor now and you've been an actor, you've been in television, like what's the most important thing that you've learned as an actor?
You know what? That's a really good question. I think one, you need to give yourself grace. And I think this goes for anything, right? Where we tend to be too hard on ourselves, right? You need to give yourself grace and know that sometimes you just need to trust the process. When it comes to acting, I'll say this, um, it does take a lot of patience, right? It takes a lot of patience, especially when you're starting out, right? Um, take those small roles, right? Take pretty much most things that, almost anything that you can get. I mean, be careful for scams because we talked about that earlier, right? But take these small roles. And I know this is a cliche saying in the acting world. There's no such thing as small parts, only small actors, but it's so true,
Right.
right? Every character, even extras, have such a pivotal role in films, right? They're in there for a reason. There's a reason why they're there, and it's changing the course of the story in one way or another. So realizing that and the importance of your character, right? Regardless of what it is, even if it doesn't have dialogue, you know, most people feel like, oh, this role doesn't have dialogue. It's not. Take whatever role you can get and start building up your portfolio,
Right.
right? The
I was
more roles
watching
that you can get. Yep.
I'm sorry, man.
No, no, you good. You good.
I was watching an episode of Law and Order SVU, and to see the actors now, like they're huge actors, and like then they had such small roles. Like the guy in Better Call Saul. This was an episode from 2000 and like four, Law and Order SVU, and he was in it. And I was like, oh God, that's the dude from Better Call Saul. But I resonate with you because there's no such thing as a small role. And I another thing is like with content creation, I always tell people like when they're like, well, what do I do to gain followers? And I said, well, you don't post anything. You don't do it. You're not putting anything out there. Unless people know what you're about, unless you show up, no one's gonna know what you're about, and no one's gonna care to find out. Like you're waiting for people to beg you to do something that's already out there. So it's really one of those things where you have to show up and essentially do the work that you can do and fit in where you can. But so my next
Absolutely.
question is this. Any memorable scenes, on-air scenes that you've had, like when it comes to acting?
Absolutely. I have a couple actually. First one I want to talk about is we filmed a reel. Me and my friend Mark Rain. Shout out to Mark Rain. He's a fellow actor as well. Amazing. Um, we did this this was like kind of our own thing. It was called the Training Day. It was a rendition of Training Day, but the Coquito edition,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Where if you remember that scene in Training Day where he's offering the drugs and he's like he puts a gun to his head, you better,
Mhm.
take these drugs. We did the same thing with Coquito, right?
Okay.
And we did that, and because I've always wanted to reenact that scene. This is the main reason why I started this idea. I was like, I want to reenact that scene. This is like an epic scene, right? So what I do is I have him drink the coquito, and then after he's done, I'm like, because I force him by gunpoint to drink the coquito, and then I'm like, oh, I didn't know you messed with that pitoro though. I didn't know he's like, that had pitoro in it, and then he's just like tripping. So while we were filming that, right, there was a scene. My other friend, Gio, Puerto Rican Gio, he's amazing as well. He's really good with the camera. He was the one actually filming it. Um, so there's a scene. I'm driving. Mark is like out the window like this because he's like super drunk and out of it, right?
Yeah.
And he's following, and then there's this lady that all of a sudden you hear, wait, 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 wait. And I'm like, what is this lady doing? She was like waving the car down. I'm like, what is she doing? She's about to like get hit, literally.
Right.
Um, so we had to pull over anyway. We pulled over and she ran to the car. This older lady, right, on the street. This was filmed in Spanish Harlem as well. So she runs up to the car. And the first thing Mark says is, no, this is not a taxi. Because she thought we
Right.
were like an Uber or something. Um, so she bends down, looks in the car. She said, Yo te conozco. I
Oh,
know.
do I know you?
And I'm like, I don't know. Do you? And she's like, you were on that dating show, weren't you? I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, was that worth almost getting it over?
I'm trying to see if you're
Um,
still single, man.
yeah,
Over
right.
over
Yeah,
over 50 Puerto Rican women, man. Like,
it
snatch you
was,
up.
oh man, it was so funny. We were just dying. And then, she was talking our heads off for a while. Then
Right.
eventually we left. Um, so another memorable moment is actually, filming this on, Garcia's.
Hmm.
Um, I cannot play basketball for, me being someone that's tall, you would think, I was good at basketball, but I'm not at all. Right. We have a basketball scene in that movie, right? Where me and my brother are playing and I'm supposed to be, you know, like beating him like crazy, right? Like I'm
Hmm.
supposed to be winning this game.
Right.
Um, and because I don't play very well, it was, they had to do a lot of camera work, I'll say that. But there was this one part where we were filming where I had to make a shot. That was the only way we were going to get this particular shot is if I actually made it. And it had to be like this backhand shot where I'm just like, whoop, you know,
Right.
and he's like, all right, you got to make that. I'm like, you're telling me I need to make this shot? First of all, I could barely shoot as is, and you want me to do it this way? Like, you know? Um, so we ended up having to do so many takes of that. And he just eventually, the cinematographer was like, all right, I'm just gonna keep the camera rolling, just keep taking the shots until you make it.
Right.
And I don't even know how long we were out there for, but it was a while. That particular scene took quite some time just because I just couldn't make the shot, man.
Right.
You
Do you
know,
ever like I know I was speaking with another person who's an actor, and they were saying like, they look a lot to their ancestors and to the people who came before them as inspiration. Um,
absolutely.
as somebody like, as somebody that's Puerto Rican, I think a lot of black and brown people, we have this mentality that like our ancestors come with us. Do you look at your success? Do you look at your acting? Do you look at where you're going in life and think about the people that have paved the way before you? And if you do, who are they?
Absolutely. One person that sticks out to me is Raul Julia. You know, amazing actor. What I really appreciate, and a lot of people don't necessarily know this about him because they're, familiar with him through his films, Addams Family, all those types of things, right? But he did quite a lot of Shakespeare in the past.
Really?
Um, I was in quite a few Shakespeare plays in school. I was actually in like a program that was we only did Shakespeare plays. Um, that really stuck out to me about Raul, that versatility that he was able to kind of exude into his work um, was just amazing. I think he's one of the ones, if I had to think of one person off the top of my head, definitely Raul Julia, for sure.
Right. I was doing some research about another gentleman. He's a Puerto Rican actor, and the theme that I found consistent with a lot of Puerto Rican actors and actors from Latin America is that they did a lot of Shakespeare. A lot of them did, and the reason why is because they wanted to lose their accents. A lot of
Yes.
them were like it was big on diction and speaking quote unquote, properly. It's really interesting because now that the accent, like when you look at somebody like Sofia Vergara, the accent is something that is like desired, that
Yeah.
hot Latin accent, you know what I mean? So sometimes I do use it in the grocery store if I don't want to help somebody. If there's like somebody like, hey, can you reach it? My English no very good. But man, so we have about 5 more minutes left. Your advice to somebody who wants to become an actor. Let's say I'm listening to this and I'm like, man, I don't know what I want to do. I want to do acting. I don't know where to get started. What say you?
Yes. We're fortunate enough to be in an age, this digital kind of social media age. Everything is done via the internet for the most part. I mean, we're doing auditions via Zoom or self-tapes and things of that nature, not necessarily having to go for the audition, right?
Mhm.
Um, Make use of what's available to you. Be resourceful is probably my best advice I can give. There are so many amazing acting apps out there now, or casting apps, should I say? Actors Access, Backstage.com. I believe there's another one, and casting networks. Yeah, casting networks. Um, some of these amazing websites and apps that really help bridge that gap and start to get the ball rolling as far as work goes. Another thing, networking. Networking. Show up to some of these premieres, right? Maybe some of the independent films, those premieres. Network, meet people. Hey, hi, how are you? My name is Zeus. I'm an actor. Talk to people,
Right.
right? Networking is so important in any field, but especially in the acting world.
A closed
You
mouth
know,
doesn't get fed.
literally, and you never know. You might be shaking hands with the person that looks at you and says, I'm filming something I need your exact look for."
Wow.
Or there's something that comes up in the future. They're like, "Oh, I remember I met such and such that one day. They have the perfect look for this." You know, Making those connections and doing that work as far as networking is going to make a world of difference. It really is. And, kind of take advantage, even social media, you know. Um, for example, I made that kind of scene with Mark Rain, right?
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes you could just make your own work too. You think of an idea you want to act out or whatever, put that up. because
Right.
this is kind of showing a little bit of what you're made of, right?
That's part of the reason why I started the podcast. I applied for a job, and they said my portfolio wasn't vast enough. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a podcast. I'm going to do content. I'm going to do content on multiple different platforms. I'm not just going to do TikTok. And so when you say make your own work, you're literally speaking to someone that is making their own work. So I appreciate that. That's definitely a boost of confidence in my
I
direction.
have to say something though, real quick.
Yeah.
I've learned so much from you.
Oh, thank you, man.
I'm not trying to, but I've learned so much from you, dude. Seriously.
Thank you. Thank you.
Like
I
the
really appreciate
information
that.
that you put out, oh my gosh. I mean, you're just a wealth of information. I'm like, man, I'm just do I
It
even need
really
to go to
though
school?
it's no, like to be honest with you, and I don't know if many people know this, but I only have an associate's degree. I don't have like a master's in history or anything like that. Barely graduated high school. I graduated high school by the skin of my teeth. I sucked as a student. But I just read. I've always liked to read and I've always liked learning and I've always my parents are lifelong learners. My dad, God rest his soul, was very much big into like learning, and before he passed away, he was getting his master's. My mom, she's just a very intelligent person, very highly educated. She has two master's degrees, always working. Like she's in her late 60s now, and she's going back to school to get her real estate license. She's never going to use it, but she's like, it's something to do. So never stop learning. Always pick up a book. If you can't pick up a book, pick up an article, learn. That's it.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. I completely agree. My motto is, I'm forever a student, right?
100%.
And I'm never gonna stop learning,
That's
nor
right.
do I want to.
Man, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Everybody give it up for Zeus and tell
Thank
us
you,
where to
thank you,
find
thank
you. We
you.
got a couple more minutes. Tell us where to find you. The
Yep.
movie. Tell us about the movie, where it's going to air, when it's going to air, and then tell us where to find you.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So you can follow me on Instagram, Zeus underscore S dot O dot S. I think I said that right. Um, Um, and as far as the movie goes, we are still filming. We don't have an exact date for release yet, but it will be available via Tubi and Amazon Prime for sure, and possibly Netflix. We'll see.
Awesome.
But as far as the premiere goes, I know we will be premiering, of course, in New York City. So if you follow me, I will definitely keep everyone up to date on how that goes for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. We have Zeus in the house. Again, thank you so much for coming, man. I really
Thank you for
appreciate it.
having me. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor, man.
Thank
Honestly,
you.
honestly, it's an honor.